Jake Miller walked through the halls of Kepler Prime University with his head down. Other students moved away from him as he passed. Some whispered behind their hands. Others just stared with wide eyes. He was used to it by now. 3 months into the Galactic Educational Exchange Program, and he was still the scary human from the Deathworld called Earth. Jake stopped at his locker and grabbed his books for xenobiology class. A small creature that looked like a rabbit with blue fur jumped away from him. That was Pip. Jake had tried to be friends with him many times, but Pip always ran away. "Sorry," Jake said quietly. "I did not mean to scare you." Pip's ears twitched. He looked at Jake with big purple eyes. You did not scare me," Pip said in his tiny voice. I have to go to class." Jake watched Pip hop away on his long legs. He wished he could make real friends here. Back on Earth, Jake was just a normal guy. He liked to read books and watch movies. He was good at biology and wanted to learn about alien life. That was why he came here. But here he was different. Here he was a predator from a Class 12 death world. Jake walked to Professor Vextai's classroom. The professor was a tall being, made of what looked like living crystal. She was kind to Jake, but even she was careful around him. The university had special rules when Jake was in class. Security guards always stood outside the door. Emergency buttons were placed around the room. Jake took his seat in the back corner. The other students sat as far from him as they could. There was Pip, the small rabbit creature. Next to him sat Krelox, who looked like a giant ant with 6 arms. Krelox made clicking sounds when he was nervous, and he clicked a lot when Jake was around. Luana sat near the window in her water suit. She was from an ocean world and needed to stay wet. Her suit was clear, and Jake could see her fish-like body inside. She had told him once that humans scared her because they could survive without water. Zim floated near the ceiling in his special container. He was made of gas and had no solid body. Jake could see Zim's green cloud swirling faster. When he was upset, the cloud always moved fast during their classes together. Professor Vextai began the lesson. Her crystal body caught the light and made rainbow patterns on the walls. "Today we will study the hunting methods of different species," she said. Jake sat up straighter. This was interesting to him. On Earth, he had watched nature shows about lions and sharks and eagles. He knew how predators worked. "Most species in the galaxy are peaceful," the professor continued. "They eat plants or small insects. Very few are true hunters." Her crystal eyes looked at Jake for a moment. Of course, there are exceptions. The other students turned to look at Jake. He felt his face get hot. He knew they were thinking about humans and how they hunted animals on Earth. Pip raised his small paw. "Professor, is it true that humans used to hunt with sharp sticks?" "Spears," Jake said without thinking. "We called them spears, and bows and arrows, and traps." The whole class went quiet. Krelox started clicking very fast. Zim's gas cloud turned a darker green. Even Luana seemed to sink lower in her water suit. I am sorry," Jake said. "I did not mean to scare anyone. We do not hunt like that anymore. Most humans just buy food at stores now." Professor Vextai's crystal body made a soft humming sound. That was how her species laughed. "It is quite all right, Jake. Your species' history is part of what makes you such good students of biology. You understand predator behavior in ways that we cannot." After class, Jake packed his books, slowly. He wanted to give the other students time to leave first. He did not like making them uncomfortable. But Pip stayed behind. The small creature hopped closer to Jake's desk, but not too close. "Jake," Pip said, "can I ask you something?" "Sure," Jake said. He tried to keep his voice soft and quiet. "Is it true that humans can run for a long time without stopping? My friend told me that humans used to chase animals until the animals got too tired to run." Jake nodded. "It is called persistence hunting. Humans are very good at running long distances. We used to chase deer and other animals until they were too tired to keep going." Pip's ears drooped. "That sounds very scary." "I guess it does," Jake said. "But we also used our running to help others. Human messengers could carry news between villages. Humans could run to get help when someone was hurt. The same thing that made us good hunters also made us good helpers. Pip thought about this. So being a predator is not always bad? No, Jake said. It is just different. A lion hunts zebras, but a lion also protects its cubs. A shark hunts fish, but sharks also keep the ocean healthy by eating sick fish. Everything has a purpose. For the first time since Jake had been at the university, Pip did not run away from him. Instead, the small creature sat down and listened. On Earth, Jake continued, humans learned to use their hunting skills in new ways. We became farmers and doctors and teachers. We still have the instincts, but we use them to protect and help instead of just to hunt. Pip's purple eyes were wide with interest. What kind of instincts? Jake thought for a moment. We notice things that might be dangerous. We can move fast when we need to. We do not give up easily when someone needs help. We work together as a team. Those do not sound so scary, Pip said. They are not scary when they are used to help, Jake agreed. They are only scary to things that want to hurt others. Pip hopped a little closer. Maybe you could tell me more about Earth sometime? I promise I will not run away. Jake smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn since coming to Kepler Prime University. I would like that very much. They walked out of the classroom together. Jake felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. Maybe being different did not have to mean being alone. Maybe his classmates could learn that humans were not just scary predators from a death world. Maybe they could learn that humans were also protectors and friends. The next day would bring new challenges that would test everything Jake had said about using predator instincts to protect others. But for now, he was just happy to have made his first real friend among the stars. The next morning, Jake arrived at xenobiology class early. He wanted to sit near Pip today. Yesterday had been the first time any of his classmates had really talked to him, and he hoped they could be friends. Pip was already there, saving a seat next to him. When Jake sat down, the small rabbit creature did not run away. This made Jake feel good. Good morning, Pip, Jake said. Good morning, Jake, Pip replied. His voice was still quiet, but he was not shaking like before. The other students came in, slowly. Krelox looked surprised to see Jake sitting so close to Pip. The ant-like creature's clicking sounds were softer today. Luana waved at Jake from inside her water suit. Even Zim's gas cloud seemed calmer. Professor Vextai entered the classroom with excitement in her crystal body. The rainbow patterns on her surface moved faster than usual. Students, she announced. Today we have something very special. The university has received a live specimen from the newly discovered world of Titan 7. A team of researchers wheeled in a large container. It was covered with a dark cloth. Jake could hear something moving. Inside, this creature was found on Titan 7 just 2 months ago, Professor Vextai continued. Our research team believes it is a peaceful plant-eating animal. Today, you will be among the first students in the galaxy to see it. Jake felt something strange in his stomach. It was the same feeling he got when something was wrong, but he could not say what. His grandfather had called it gut instinct. His grandfather had been a soldier and had taught Jake to trust these feelings. The creature is called a void stalker, the professor said. Do not let the name worry you. The research team picked that name only because of its dark color. It is completely harmless. One of the researchers, a tall alien with 4 eyes, began to speak. We have studied this creature for weeks. It shows no signs of aggressive behavior. It eats only a special crystal plant that grows on Titan 7. It has no natural weapons and moves very slowly. Jake raised his hand. Professor, may I ask a question? Of course, Jake. How big is Titan 7 compared to other worlds? What is the gravity like? Are there other predators there? The researcher with 4 eyes looked confused. Why do these things matter? We have scanned the creature completely. It is safe. Jake tried to explain. On Earth, we learned that you cannot understand an animal without understanding its world. If Titan 7 is dangerous, even plant eaters might have evolved to be tough or fast or smart. Professor Vextai's crystal body hummed softly. Jake raises a good point. However, our scanners show no weapons or dangerous features. The creature appears to be exactly what it seems. Jake still felt worried, but he did not want to argue. These aliens were much smarter than him about technology and science. Maybe his human instincts were wrong. The researchers pulled away the dark cloth. Inside the clear container was the most beautiful creature Jake had ever seen. It looked like a large cat with midnight black fur that seemed to absorb light. It had 6 legs and moved with smooth grace. Its eyes were like stars against its dark face. "Oh, it is beautiful," Pip whispered. All the students made sounds of wonder. Even Jake had to admit the creature was amazing to look at. It sat calmly, in its container, looking around with what seemed like gentle curiosity. But something was wrong. Jake could not put his finger on it, but every instinct in his body was screaming danger. The way the creature moved, the way it held its head, the way its eyes tracked movement. Everything reminded him of the big cats he had seen in nature documentaries. "As you can see," the researcher said, "the Void Stalker is completely calm. It shows no stress or aggressive behavior." Jake watched the creature more carefully. Its breathing was slow and steady. Its muscles looked relaxed. To everyone else, it probably looked peaceful. But Jake had grown up watching nature shows about lions and tigers and leopards. He knew what a relaxed predator looked like. This was not relaxed. This was focused. This was a hunter watching prey. "Professor," Jake said, raising his hand again, "I think we should be more careful." "What do you mean, Jake?" Professor Vextai asked. Jake tried to find the right words. "The way it moves, the way it watches us. It reminds me of predators from Earth. Big cats. They look calm right before they attack." The researcher with 4 eyes made a sound like laughter. "Young human, I understand your concern. Your species comes from a dangerous world, so you see, danger everywhere. But we have technology that can read the creature's brain patterns. It shows no aggressive thoughts." "Maybe it thinks differently than we expect," Jake said. "Maybe it is smart enough to hide its intentions." Pip looked worried now. "Jake, do you really think it is dangerous?" Jake looked at the Void Stalker again. It was still sitting calmly, but now its star-like eyes were focused on Pip. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "I think we should be ready for anything," Jake said. Professor Vextai considered this. "Perhaps we should maintain the containment field during the entire demonstration." "That will not be necessary," the researcher said. "We plan to release the creature for a few minutes so the students can observe its natural behavior. The containment field blocks some of our scanning equipment." Jake wanted to protest, but he was just a student. These researchers had studied the creature for weeks. They had advanced technology and years of experience. Who was he to question them? But his grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. "Trust your gut, boy. When something feels wrong, it usually is wrong." The researcher moved to the control panel. "We will now lower the containment field for 10 minutes. Please observe how the Void Stalker moves and behaves in a natural state." "Wait," Jake said, standing up. "Please, just wait a minute." Everyone looked at him. The other students seemed confused. Professor Vexitai's crystal body showed concern. "Jake," she said gently, "what exactly worries you?" Jake looked at the creature again. How could he explain what he felt? How could he tell them that something in his bones, something deep in his human DNA was screaming that this animal was dangerous? "It is the way it breathes," Jake said finally, "and the way its muscles are positioned, and the way it watches us without moving its head. These are things that predators do when they are hunting." The researcher shook his head. "Young human, you are seeing patterns that do not exist. This creature has been completely analyzed. Trust our science, not your primitive instincts." Jake felt angry at being called primitive, but he tried to stay calm. "My instincts kept my species alive for millions of years. Maybe they are worth listening to." Professor Vextai was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Perhaps we should postpone the demonstration until we can study Jake's concerns." "That is unnecessary," the researcher said. "We cannot let unfounded fears stop scientific progress." He reached for the control panel. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. Every nerve in his body told him to stop what was about to happen. But he was just one human student in a room full of advanced aliens. What could he do? The researcher's hand moved toward the button that would lower the containment field. Jake hoped with all his heart that he was wrong about the Void Stalker. But, deep down, he knew he was not wrong. He knew that in a few seconds everything was going to go very, very bad. The researcher pressed the button. The blue glow of the containment field flickered and disappeared. For a moment, nothing happened. The Void Stalker sat exactly as it had before. It looked calm and peaceful. Jake wondered if maybe he had been wrong after all. Then the lights in the classroom flickered. There was a power surge somewhere in the building. The containment field tried to come back on, but it failed. Red warning lights started flashing. That was when everything changed. The Void Stalker's entire body transformed in less than 2 seconds. The calm, gentle creature was gone. In its place was something that made Jake's blood run cold. Sharp claws shot out from hidden sheaths in its paws. Its jaw opened wider than should have been possible, showing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Bright red patterns appeared along its black fur, pulsing like a heartbeat. Its star-like eyes became focused and deadly. But the worst part was the sound it made. It was not a roar or a growl. It was something much more terrible, a low humming that seemed to come from inside everyone's head. The effect on Jake's classmates was immediate and terrifying. Pip fell to the floor as if he had been shot. His small body shook uncontrollably. His purple eyes rolled back, showing only white. He made tiny whimpering sounds. Krelox's 6 arms went stiff. His clicking sounds became a high-pitched scream that hurt Jake's ears. Yellow liquid dripped. From his joints, some kind of stress response. Luana's water suit began to leak. She was floating upside down inside it, completely still. Jake could not tell if she was conscious or not. Zim's gas cloud started to spread apart. Parts of his green body drifted toward the ceiling while other parts sank toward the floor. He was losing the ability to hold himself together. Even Professor Vextai was affected. Her crystal body lost its bright colors and became dull gray. She stood frozen like a statue, unable to move or speak. The researcher with 4 eyes had collapsed completely. His body lay twisted on the floor, his 4 eyes staring at nothing. Jake realized with horror that he was the only one still functioning. Whatever the Void Stalker was doing to the others, it was not working on him. The creature stepped out of its container with fluid grace. Now Jake could see how it really moved. Like liquid death, every step perfectly calculated. This was not a plant eater. This was an apex predator, probably the most dangerous thing on its entire world. Jake understood now why it had seemed calm before. It had not been calm. It had been studying them, learning about them, deciding which one would be the easiest to kill first. The Void Stalker's glowing red eyes swept across the frozen aliens and stopped on Pip. The small rabbit creature was the most helpless, still shaking on the floor. The predator's muscles tensed. It was getting ready to pounce. Jake moved without thinking. He jumped up from his desk and shouted as loud as he could, "Hey, over here!" The sound of his voice seemed to break the terrible spell for a moment. The Void Stalker turned its star-filled eyes toward him. Jake saw intelligence there, cold, calculating intelligence. But he also saw something else. Confusion. The creature tilted its head like a cat trying to understand something strange. Its humming sound got louder, but Jake felt nothing except a mild headache. Whatever psychic weapon it was using did not work on humans. Jake realized why. Humans had evolved on a world full of predators. His species had survived by learning to fight back when cornered, not by freezing in fear. His brain was wired differently than his classmates' brains. The Void Stalker seemed to realize this too. It took a step toward Jake, moving with careful precision. This was not going to be an easy kill like Pip would have been. This was going to be a real fight. Jake looked around quickly. The classroom had desks, chairs, and Professor Vextai's teaching equipment. No real weapons, but maybe he could improvise. The creature moved closer. Jake could see its muscles rippling under its black fur. It was probably 3 times stronger than him and much faster. Its claws looked like they could cut through metal. But Jake had advantages too. He had grown up watching nature documentaries about predators. He knew how they thought and how they hunted. More importantly, he had something this alien predator had probably never encountered before. He had prey that fought back. Jake grabbed a chair and held it in front of him like a shield. The Voidstalker paused, studying this new behavior. On its homeworld, prey probably ran or froze. They did not pick up furniture and face their attacker. "That is right," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am not like them. I am from a Deathworld too." The creature's red patterns pulsed faster. It was getting angry or excited. Jake could not tell which. Behind the predator, Jake could see his classmates. Pip was still on the floor, completely helpless. Professor Vextai stood frozen. The others were in various states of collapse. If Jake ran, the Voidstalker would kill them all. If he fought and lost, it would kill them all anyway. But if he could somehow win, the creature crouched low, getting ready to spring. Its claws dug into the floor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. Jake thought about his grandfather, who had taught him to never give up. He thought about his parents, who had been proud when he was chosen for the exchange program. He thought about Pip, who had finally started to trust him. The Voidstalker launched itself through the air like a black missile. Its claws were aimed at Jake's throat. Jake did something the creature did not expect. Instead of trying to dodge or block, he swung the chair as hard as he could and charged forward to meet the attack. The fight for all their lives had begun. Time seemed to slow down as predator met predator in the middle of the classroom. Jake knew that the next few seconds would decide whether anyone in this room lived or died. His human instincts, shaped by millions of years of survival on Earth, finally had a chance to prove their worth among the stars. The chair hit the Voidstalker in midair with a loud crash. The creature twisted like a cat and landed on its feet, but the impact had thrown off its attack. Its claws missed Jake's throat by inches. Jake did not waste time being surprised that he was still alive. He immediately swung the chair again, but the creature was too fast. It dodged and circled around him, looking for another opening. Jake's mind raced. He could not match this thing's speed or strength, but he could think like a human, like a predator from Earth. The Voidstalker lunged again. This time Jake did not try to hit it. Instead, he threw the chair directly at its head and dove to the side. The creature batted the chair away easily, but those 2 seconds gave Jake time to grab something else. Professor Vextai's laser pointer. It was not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. Jake pointed the laser at the creature's eyes and pressed the button. A bright red dot appeared on the wall behind it. The Voidstalker's head snapped toward the dot like a cat chasing a toy. For just a moment, the predator was confused. Its instincts told it to follow the moving light, but its intelligence knew this was not prey. Jake used that moment to put a desk between himself and the creature, but he knew he could not keep this up forever. He was already getting tired, and the Voidstalker seemed as fresh as when it started. The creature snarled and leaped onto the desk. Jake quickly moved the laser dot to the opposite wall. Again, the predator's head turned to follow it, but this time it did not move. It was learning. Jake needed a new plan. He looked around the classroom again. The emergency alarm button was on the wall near the door, but the Voidstalker was between him and it. Even if he could reach it, help might not come in time. Then he remembered something from a nature show about lions. They were ambush predators who relied on stealth and surprise. When their prey fought back and made noise, they sometimes retreated to find easier targets. Jake took a deep breath and did something that went against every human instinct. He made himself as big and loud as possible. "Come on!" he shouted at the top of his lungs. He spread his arms wide and stepped toward the creature. "You want to fight? Let's fight." The Voidstalker's red patterns flickered. This was definitely not normal prey behavior. Jake grabbed another chair and slammed it against the floor as hard as he could. The metal legs made a terrible screeching sound. He did it again and again, filling the room with noise. The creature backed up a step. Its ears flattened against its head. On its world, prey probably stayed quiet when being hunted. All this noise was disturbing its hunting instincts. But Jake could not keep this up forever. His arms were getting sore from swinging the chair and his throat hurt from shouting. Worse, the Voidstalker was adapting. It was starting to ignore the noise. The creature crouched low again, preparing for another attack. This time, Jake could see that it was not going to be distracted by tricks. It was going to end this fight quickly. Jake looked at his frozen classmates one more time. Pip was still on the floor, helpless. Professor Vexiti stood like a crystal statue. He could not let them down. The Voidstalker sprang forward. Jake tried to dodge, but this time the creature anticipated his movement. Its claws raked across his shoulder, tearing through his shirt and into his skin. Pain shot through Jake's body, but adrenaline kept him moving. He rolled away and grabbed a heavy textbook from the floor. When the creature turned to follow him, he threw the book as hard as he could. The book hit the Voidstalker in the face. It was not enough to hurt the creature, but it made it angry. Really angry. The red patterns on its fur started pulsing like strobe lights. Its humming sound became a harsh shriek that made Jake's head pound. The creature was no longer hunting. It was in a rage. That was exactly what Jake had hoped for. Angry predator makes mistakes. Jake had learned this from watching nature shows about wolves and bears. When they got mad, they stopped thinking and just attacked wildly. The Voidstalker charged straight at him with no strategy, just fury. Jake waited until the last second, then dropped to the floor and rolled. The creature sailed over him and crashed into the wall. While it was getting back up, Jake spotted something useful. There was a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall near Professor Vexti's desk. Jake ran for it as fast as he could. Behind him, he could hear the Voidstalker's claws scratching on the floor as it chased him. He reached the fire extinguisher, just as he felt hot breath on the back of his neck. Jake spun around and pulled the pin. White foam shot out in a thick stream, hitting the creature right in the face. The Voidstalker shrieked and stumbled backward, pawing at its eyes. The foam would not hurt it, but it could not see. Jake kept spraying until the extinguisher was empty. Then he did something his grandfather had taught him about fighting. He did not wait for the creature to recover. He attacked. Jake grabbed a metal ruler from Professor Vexti's desk and hit the blinded creature as hard as he could. Then he grabbed another chair and brought it down on the Voidstalker's back. The creature thrashed wildly, trying to clear the foam from its eyes. Its claws swung through the air, missing Jake by inches, but it could not see him to fight back effectively. Jake kept hitting it with everything he could find. Books, chairs, anything heavy. He did not try to kill it, he just wanted to hurt it enough that it would give up. Finally, the Voidstalker had enough. It stumbled backwards, still partially blinded by foam, and curled up in the corner. Its red patterns faded to dim pink. It made a low whining sound that seemed to mean surrender. Jake stood in the middle of the destroyed classroom, breathing hard and bleeding from his shoulder. The fire extinguisher was empty in his hands. Broken furniture was scattered everywhere, but he was alive, and more importantly, his classmates were alive. The creature's psychic attack was getting weaker. Pip stirred on the floor and made a small sound. Professor Vexiti's crystal body began to show color again. Jake heard footsteps in the hallway. Security guards were finally coming. But the fight was over. Jake looked at the Voidstalker cowering in the corner. It was still dangerous, but it was no longer the confident predator that had attacked them. It had learned something new today. It had learned that sometimes prey fights back and sometimes the prey wins. Security guards rushed into the classroom with their weapons ready, but they stopped when they saw Jake standing over the defeated Voidstalker with an empty fire extinguisher in his hands. "It is okay," Jake said quietly. "The creature is down, but we need medical help for the others." The guards looked confused. They had expected to find a monster terrorizing helpless victims. Instead, they found a human student who had somehow won a fight against an apex predator. Dr. Kim, the head of security, stepped forward carefully. She was a tall alien with silver skin and large black eyes. "What happened here?" she asked. "The containment field failed," Jake explained. The creature attacked. I had to fight it to protect my classmates. Dr. Kim looked around the destroyed classroom. Broken furniture was everywhere. Foam from the fire extinguisher covered half the floor. The Void Stalker sat in the corner, longer glowing red, looking more like a scared animal than a deadly predator. "You did this?" Dr. Kim asked. "By yourself?" Jake nodded. He was starting to feel the pain in his shoulder where the creature's claws had cut him. "Is everyone else okay?" Medical teams were already checking on his classmates. Pip was sitting up now, though his purple eyes were still wide with shock. Professor Vextai's crystal body was returning to normal colors. Krelox had stopped making stress chemicals, and Luana was swimming normally in her suit again. "They will be fine," one of the doctors told Jake. "The creature's psychic attack caused temporary paralysis, but there is no permanent damage." Jake felt relief wash over him. He had done it. He had saved them. Dr. Kim helped Jake sit down in one of the few undamaged chairs. "We need to understand how this happened," she said. "Our researchers said the creature was harmless." "It was not harmless," Jake said. "It was just very good at hiding what it really was. It studied us before it attacked. It knew exactly how to paralyze everyone except me." Professor Vextai walked over slowly. Her crystal body was still dim, but she was recovering. "Jake tried to warn us," she said. "He sensed something we missed with all our technology." The researcher, with 4 eyes, was awake now, sitting on the floor and looking embarrassed. "I do not understand," he said. "Our scanners showed no weapons, no aggressive behavior patterns." "Because you were looking for the wrong things," Jake said. "You were thinking like peaceful species. You looked for claws and teeth and obvious threats. But the real weapons were hidden. The psychic attack, the camouflage behavior, the intelligence, those do not show up on normal scans." Dr. Kim made notes on her electronic pad. "How did you know it was dangerous?" Jake thought about how to explain. "On Earth, I watched shows about predators. Lions, tigers, sharks, wolves. I learned to recognize the signs, the way they move, the way they watch their prey, the way they stay calm before attacking. This creature did all those things. But why? Did its psychic attack not work on you?" Professor Vextai asked. "I think it is because humans evolved differently," Jake said. "Most species in the galaxy developed on safe worlds. When they see a predator, their brains tell them to freeze or hide. But humans come from a world full of predators. Our brains tell us to fight back." Pip hopped over to Jake's chair. The small rabbit creature was still shaking a little, but he looked determined. "Jake," Pip said, "you saved my life. You saved all our lives." "I just did what anyone would do," Jake replied. "No," Professor Vextai said firmly. "What you did was extraordinary. None of us could move. We were completely helpless. You were the only one who could act." Dr. Kim closed her electronic pad. "This incident will change how we handle dangerous specimens. We need better protocols, better understanding of predator behavior." "Jake should help with that," Pip suggested. "He understands things we do not." Over the next few weeks, everything changed for Jake at Kepler Prime University. Instead of being the scary human that everyone avoided, he became the human who had saved his classmates. Students who had never spoken to him before now wanted to hear stories about Earth's predators. Professors asked him to guest lecture about threat assessment and survival instincts. Most importantly, the university offered him a position as a special consultant on dangerous species research. His job would be to review new discoveries and look for threats that advanced technology might miss. "We have learned something important," Professor Vextai told him during his first official briefing. "Intelligence and technology are not enough. We also need instinct and experience." Jake's new office was next to the xenobiology department. On his first day of work, Pip hopped in to visit. "I have been thinking about what you said," Pip told him, "about predators also being protectors." "What about it?" Jake asked. "You are proof that it is true," Pip said. "You have all the instincts of a predator. You can sense danger, you react fast, you do not give up in a fight. But you use those instincts to protect us, not hurt us." Jake smiled. "That is what humans do best. We take the skills that helped us survive and use them to help others. I am not afraid of you anymore, Pip said. I know you would never hurt me. Never, Jake agreed. As the weeks passed, Jake became known throughout the university as someone who could spot danger that others missed. He helped identify 3 more species that were not as harmless as they appeared. Each time, his human instincts caught what the scanners missed. But more than that, he helped his classmates understand that being dangerous and being evil were not the same thing. A human could be deadly when threatened, but gentle with friends. A predator could be a protector. Students from across the galaxy came to study with Jake. They wanted to learn how to think like a predator so they could better understand the universe around them. Jake's favorite part of his new job was the field trips. He would take groups of students to observe animals in controlled environments, teaching them to read body language and behavior patterns. Remember, he would tell them, everything in nature has a purpose. Even the scariest predator is just trying to survive and protect what matters to it. The key is understanding what drives them. One day, while leading a class through the university's alien wildlife preserve, one of his students asked him a question. Jake, do you ever miss being just a regular student instead of the famous human who fought the Void Stalker? Jake thought about it. Sometimes, he said, but I learned something important that day. Being different is not always a bad thing. My human instincts made me an outsider here, but they also saved lives. Sometimes the thing that makes you different is exactly what the universe needs. That evening, Jake sat in his apartment looking out at the alien stars. He had come to Kepler Prime University hoping to learn about alien life. Instead, he had learned something about himself. He had learned that humans had a special gift. They were survivors, fighters, protectors. They could face danger without freezing in fear. They could make hard choices when others could not. But most importantly, they could use their strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. Jake's computer chimed with a message from Earth. It was from his grandfather, the old soldier who had taught him to trust his instincts. Heard about what happened, boy, the message said. Proud of you. You did what humans do best. You stood up for those who needed help. That is what real strength is for. Jake smiled and typed back a reply. Thanks, Grandpa. I am finally starting to understand what you meant about using our gifts to help others. Outside his window, the alien stars shone down on a universe that was slowly learning that humans were not just scary predators from a death world. They were something much more valuable than that. They were guardians.